For the first time in history, a Syrian president will visit the White House, and a former al-Qaeda member, no less. Ahmed al-Sharaa, the former rebel commander who toppled former Syrian despot Bashar Assad, is now being welcomed by President Trump as Washington pushes to end more than a decade of sanctions and rebuild a shattered nation. We'll look at the high stakes behind the meeting, the divisions in Congress, and why the administration says there's, quote, no plan B if this peace project fails. In just a few days, the White House will host one of the most improbable figures ever to walk its halls, and that would be Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa, the former al-Qaeda insurgent and now head of state who helped topple former Syrian strongman Assad just last year. While there have been whispers of this encounter for several days, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt officially confirmed the meeting on Tuesday, saying that Syria's new leaders have made, quote, good progress since taking power in December of 2024, and that President Trump wants to, quote, give them a real chance at peace, according to a report from Reuters. Notably, it will mark the first time in history that a Syrian president will set foot in the Oval Office. Well, not to mention a former member of al-Qaeda. Observers say that President Trump is taking a calculated risk that the former jihadist and rebel commander can help Syria join a fragile new Middle East order, one anchored in mutually beneficial economic deals and diplomatic normalization. According to a report from the Wall Street Journal, the administration is already laying the groundwork behind the scenes to make the meeting a success. Earlier this week, the Trump administration proposed a draft United Nations Security Council resolution that would lift key sanctions on Damascus. It's a move that would unlock the country's return to the global economy and clear the way for reconstruction contracts. It's not immediately clear, however, when that resolution could be put to a vote. It would need 9 votes to pass and no vetoes from Russia, China, France, or Britain. Now, Washington has been pushing the 15-member Security Council to ease these sanctions for months, but the body has been reluctant to make a decisive move. As a reminder, the sanctions in question apply to members of the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, which under the leadership of Sharaa toppled the Assad regime. HTS, formerly known as the Nusra Front, was al-Qaeda's official wing in Syria until breaking ties in 2016. While Sharaa has rebranded himself as a nationalist reformer committed to the values of pluralism since taking power, global skepticism about his leadership does remain. While the sanctions include a travel ban, asset freeze, and arms embargo, the Security Council has granted Sharaa numerous travel exemptions this year to facilitate diplomatic outreach, and they're expected to greenlight this trip to the U.S., even if the resolution is not adopted by Monday. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is also pushing the U.S. Congress to formally lift America's sanctions against Syria. Specifically, Trump wants Congress to repeal the Caesar Act. That's the 2019 sanctions law that throttled Syria's economy during the Civil War. And the goal would be to reopen the country to reconstruction, foreign investment, and most critically, American leverage. As with the UN push, White House officials argue that unless Syria reconnects to the global financial system, it could collapse into a second civil war. Entire cities do remain in rubble, the economy is paralyzed, and weapons still flow through the country's northern corridors. One senior official told the Journal the repeal is, quote, key to allow U.S. business and regional states to operate in Syria. The Senate has already approved the measure as part of this year's defense bill, but the House remains divided, with some Republicans fearing that lifting sanctions too soon could whitewash hardliners inside Sharaa's government, many of whom fought under extremist banners during the war, essentially legitimizing a government still populated by extremists. But the administration is pressing forward. Trump signed an executive order in June, temporarily suspending Syrian sanctions, but his team wants permanence. Ambassador Tom Barrack, Trump's special envoy for Syria, has been publicly lobbying lawmakers, warning that there's, quote, no plan B if Sharaa's government fails. Barrack, who helped broker the president's May meeting with Sharaa in Riyadh, says the White House views the new Syrian leadership as the last viable chance to stabilize the country. If the holdouts in the House can be convinced to approve the repeal, It would mark a decisive shift in American Middle East policy and would be the first step in normalizing diplomatic relations with Damascus. And that shift would then allow major funds to start pouring into the war-torn country. International lenders and Gulf investors have been waiting for a green light from Washington before committing billions to Syria's reconstruction. Analysts estimate the country will need at least $250 billion to rebuild basic infrastructure. I should mention that Monday's meeting was largely brokered through the efforts of Saudi Arabia, whose crown prince has been championing Shira's rehabilitation. For the Saudis, strengthening Syria provides both a hedge against Iranian influence and an opportunity to showcase their ability to serve as an indispensable mediator in the Arab world on behalf of the U.S. With all that in mind, the optics of Monday's meeting are rather extraordinary. A one-time U.S. adversary now welcomed as a potential partner in rebuilding a nation once synonymous with terrorism. But the administration insists the engagement is pragmatic, not naive. I should also note that under the Senate's language on repealing the sanctions, the president would still be required to issue reports for the next 4 years documenting that Syria is protecting human rights, purging foreign fighters, cooperating on counterterrorism, and developing ties with Israel. If those benchmarks aren't met, Congress could decide to pass new legislation to reimpose the sanctions. All right. Coming up next, South Korean intelligence says that a summit between President Trump and North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un will likely take place next year. Plus, Russian President Putin orders top officials to prepare plans to resume nuclear testing. I'm surprised he's not rolling out yet another doomsday weapon. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Well, the holidays will be here before you know it. And for many families, that means excitement and, well, of course, a little stress. Between gifts and travel and higher prices, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, especially if you're already relying on credit cards to cover the basics. Look, if that debt is piling up, you're not alone. Get this, Americans are currently carrying over $1 trillion in credit card debt. So, now, if you're a homeowner and you have already considered reaching out to American Financing, but maybe you decided you hesitated because you don't want to give up your low mortgage rate, I've got some good news. American Financing has created what they call the Smart Equity Loan. It's a simple, smart way to get your finances back on track without giving up your low mortgage rate. Unlike a HELOC, which can fluctuate with the market, the Smart Equity Loan offers a fixed rate, so you'll have one predictable monthly payment. It lets you use your home's equity to pay off high-interest debt, free up your cash flow, and still keep your existing mortgage intact. There are no upfront fees, and to find out if you qualify, just call 866-885-1881. Again, that number, 866-885-1881. Or just visit americanfinancing.net/PDB. Welcome back to the PDB. President Trump may finally get what's eluded him since returning to office. That would be a sit-down with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. South Korea's spy agency says the odds of new talks are rising, even as Pyongyang accelerates its nuclear ambitions. Seoul's National Intelligence Service told lawmakers this week that Kim, quote, has the intent to pursue dialogue with the U.S. and will seek contact if conditions become favorable. In plain terms, South Korea's top spies think that Kim is softening his tone, quietly positioning himself for talks once military drills in March wrap up. Those joint exercises of U.S. and South Korean forces, which Pyongyang loves to denounce as invasion rehearsals, have long been the North's go-to excuse to stall diplomacy. Still, Kim has made his conditions clear. In a September speech, he said talks with the U.S. were possible if Washington dropped its, quote, absurd obsession with denuclearizing and, quote, wants genuine peaceful coexistence. The North Korean strongman made clear his regime would never give up nuclear weapons, signaling that any dialogue with Trump would be about peace, not disarmament. In the wake of that speech, officials in Seoul say North Korea, well, they've been recalibrating, adjusting their propaganda and testing the waters for what could become their first direct contact with Washington in years. For President Trump, who's made no secret of his desire to reopen a diplomatic channel with the regime, the signs are encouraging. It's the kind of opening he believes could turn confrontation into leverage for the U.S., a way to pressure Kim to ease nuclear ambitions through dialogue rather than through isolation. Still, the path forward comes with clear risks. Since the last Trump-Kim meeting in 2019, Pyongyang has poured massive resources into its weapons programs, strengthened military ties with Moscow and Beijing, and rolled out new missile systems designed to evade Western defenses, particularly those of the U.S. South Korean intelligence warns that the regime's seventh underground nuclear test could happen at any time, and that new reconnaissance satellites and solid-fuel ICBMs are already in development. As I mentioned, despite these developments, White House officials insist the door to diplomacy remains open. Trump administration officials say the president is willing to meet, quote, without any preconditions, the same direct approach that defined his first-term summits. Those meetings may not have produced denuclearization of the Hermit Kingdom, but they broke through decades of silence, creating a line of communication no previous administration had managed to build. In Trump's view, that kind of personal outreach is still the best way to prevent escalation, especially when the other side is armed and unpredictable. Kim, of course, has made little effort to disguise his nuclear aims. He's vowed to grow his stockpile exponentially, personally overseeing the testing of new long-range multi-warhead systems just last month. His message was and is clear. North Korea wants recognition as a nuclear power, not disarmament. It's the posture that keeps the pressure on the peninsula high, even as his regime hints at talks. For Trump, the challenge and the opportunity are one and the same. Another summit could keep a dangerous standoff from sliding into a crisis, but it will also test whether Kim's gestures are genuine or just another play for leverage in a bid to ease Western sanctions. So with Kim clear that denuclearization is off the table, diplomacy only counts if it can deliver proof of containment, such as nuclear inspections, monitoring, and enforceable measures to limit what Pyongyang already has. Okay, turning now to another regime's nuclear stockpile. I mean, these days, who doesn't have a nuclear stockpile? Well, now we're talking Russia. President Putin is once again brandishing his arsenal, ordering his defense chiefs to draft plans for nuclear tests after President Trump signaled that America may soon resume its own testing. Moscow's latest escalation played out live on state television, a carefully choreographed show of power inside the Kremlin's Security Council chamber. It was Putin's answer, delivered less than a week after Trump's announcement that America would resume nuclear testing for the first time in more than 30 years. Flanked by his top brass, Putin told the group he had warned Washington that any nuclear test would, quote, require appropriate retaliatory measures. Putin's message was clear: if America breaks the moratorium, Russia won't sit on the sidelines. Putin then ordered his defense and policy teams to begin gathering intelligence on Washington's potential plans for testing and to return with concrete proposals for how Moscow should respond. Around the table, his generals fell in line. Well, what would you expect them to do? Russia's defense minister urged, quote, full-scale nuclear testing immediately, while Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov warned that rebuilding test infrastructure could take years, and such delay could leave Russia behind. The Kremlin's intelligence chief added that his previous outreach to American officials had gone nowhere, saying, quote, representatives from both the White House and the State Department declined to comment. The mood in the room, though it appeared scripted, did carry an edge, a sense that Putin wanted to be seen making the next move, not reacting to one. For Washington, the picture hasn't been much clearer. The U.S. hasn't conducted an explosive nuclear detonation since 1992, and administration officials, similar to the Kremlin's, note it would take years to bring the nuclear Nevada test site back online. Trump himself has sent mixed signals in recent weeks, first suggesting the U.S. would, quote, do some testing, then clarifying through his energy secretary that the plan would involve non-nuclear system trials, not underground blasts. As we've discussed, Russia hasn't conducted a live nuclear weapons detonation since the final Soviet test in the 1990s. Still, the Kremlin has continued experimenting with delivery systems, from the Burevestnik cruise missile to the so-called Poseidon underwater drone that supposedly could trigger radioactive tidal waves. And radioactive tidal wave would be a great name for an alt-rock band. Just something to think about. Russia's defense minister hinted that the Novaya Zemlya, the remote Arctic archipelago, once used as the Soviet Union's primary nuclear test site, could serve once again as a proving ground if tests are resumed. Now, Putin's directive is not an order to detonate a bomb, but instead it's a signal. By setting his foreign and defense ministries in motion, he's reviving the old machinery of the Cold War while leaving room to claim restraint. But his intention appears to be clear. This kind of maneuver lets the Kremlin project strength without crossing the line of testing and sends a message that Moscow won't be outpaced. But it also risks tearing down the decades-old arms control norms that kept nuclear competition contained. State TV theatrics aside, the move fits a familiar pattern. Putin's playbook has long leaned on nuclear brinksmanship, using fear of escalation to project strength abroad and control the narrative at home. All right. Coming up in the back of the brief, Ukraine's drone pilots are reportedly engaged in video game-style kill tracking, earning rewards for each successful strike on Russian forces. I'll have those details when we come back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Let me take just a moment to talk about protecting your hard-earned assets. Now, did you know that gold is up around 40% this year? It's true. It's not speculation, it's just reality. And if a portion of your savings isn't diversified into gold, well, you could be missing the boat. Now, here are the facts. Inflation is still too high, right? The U.S. dollar is still too weak, and the government debt, well, seems almost insurmountable. And that's why central banks are flocking to gold, and they're the ones driving prices up to record highs. But it's not too late to buy gold from the Birch Gold Group, and you can get yourself in the door now. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or a 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, and you don't pay a dime out of pocket. Just text PDB to 989898 and claim your free information kit. There's no obligation. It's just useful information. Look, the best indicator of the future is the past, and gold has historically been a safe haven for generations during times of economic uncertainty. So just text PDB to 989898 right now to claim your free information kit on gold. That's PDB to 989898. Protect your future today with Birch Gold. In today's back of the brief, forget the old rewards of war like medals and ribbons. Right? Now Ukraine's drone pilots fight for digital rewards under a new government program that turns every confirmed Russian kill into store credits that they can use to purchase better drones. The so-called, quote, Army of Drones bonus system has quickly become one of the most talked-about programs in Ukraine's military. What began as a small pilot initiative has evolved into a full-blown competition across the front, with hundreds of drone units now racing to climb the leaderboard and claim bragging rights, one confirmed kill at a time. So you ask yourself, how does it work? Well, that's a good question. The system runs through something called Brave One. That's a Ukrainian government-run defense tech platform that doubles as both a digital weapons store and a public leaderboard. When the program launched last year, soldiers earned 6 points for every confirmed Russian casualty, enough to compile into purchasing larger drones. But recent changes have supercharged the rewards. 12 points for each kill, 25 for taking out an enemy drone operator, and a staggering 120 points for capturing a Russian soldier alive using UAVs. If that sounds like something out of a video game, well, that's the point. The system works a lot like Call of Duty's XP, or Experience Points system. It's a reward scheme where players progress by completing objectives, such as defeating enemies. And participation has exploded, up more than 400% just since August. As for the leaderboard, the 414th Infantry Brigade sits among the top performers. Their name's now as familiar on the Brave One website as they are along the front lines. For Kyiv, it's part morale boost, part strategy shift, a way to keep troops engaged and incentivized as the war grinds on. Ukraine's prime minister told The Guardian, quote, "It's become truly popular among units." He added that soldiers now talk about their point totals the way the gamers talk about scores. The prime minister said, quote, "The more infantry you kill, the more drones you get to kill more infantry." It's become kind of a self-reinforcing cycle. And the system has put up huge numbers. Kyiv claims that drone pilots killed more than 18,000 Russian soldiers in September alone. That's a figure that, if accurate, underscores just how much the nature of warfare has changed. And so, for Ukraine's growing army of drone operators, the front line has instead become a game of points and rewards, however dystopian that may sound. And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Thursday, the 6th of November. Now, if you have any questions or comments, and I hope you do, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And if you'd like to listen to the show ad-free, well, you can do that, and it is simple. Just become a premium member of the PDB by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here, with an important message for dudes everywhere. Look, have you ever felt awkward walking into a pharmacy and picking up a prescription for something personal? You know what I'm talking about. Wishing maybe the pharmacist would, lower their voice. Maybe you're picking up something that you'd rather keep discreet. Well, let me tell you something. There's a better way. Meet Rougiette Ready. It's a next-gen ED treatment made right in the USA. And it's the first to target both brain and body, boosting arousal and blood flow in just 15 minutes. What? 15 minutes. With effects lasting up to, get this, 36 hours. Seriously, 36 hours. Come on. Rougiette Ready is a fast-acting dissolvable tablet formulated with clinically proven medications for ED. And getting Rougiette is easy, and that's the important point here. Answer a few questions online, get reviewed by a doctor within 24 to 48 hours, and receive discreet delivery. No insurance, no pharmacy lines, no embarrassment, just fast, effective results that you can count on. Ready to give Rougiette a try? Well, it's easy. Get 15% off your first order by going to rougiette.com/PDB and using code PDB. Or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this offer.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.